And I'd like to have that back and then take out a sheet of notebook paper. And we're going to get started with our study on quitting today. Sheet of notebook paper. Hopefully at the end we'll get a chance to talk a little bit about our breaking of a social norm assignment as well, and reflect upon that, since that was due this morning. Okay. All right, we've had a series of lessons, and these lessons are really a focus on our values in American culture and the cultural influence here. Like yesterday, talking about names, right? How much does your name matter? And then today, the upside of quitting is talking about that particular value of perseverance in our American culture, right? What are some common thoughts that you have heard of about quitting? What are some common sayings about quitting that you have heard? Wyatt?
Never give up.
Never give up, right? Right. And what else? Where do we learn never give up? I think of a children's book teaching us about never giving up. I haven't really read it to Preston or Duke, but I remember reading it when I was younger. Maybe it's not as big as it used to be, but it was called The Little Engine That Could. Anybody read that one? The Little Engine That Could. There's another saying that quitters never what? Quitters never win. Okay? And I think I was exposed to that idea, in the aspects of competition. Maybe Coach had said that at some point in time. But that it's conveyed to you that you need to persevere. You need to continue working at it that way. How many of your parents have told you something like that? Right? That, you're not going to quit. You got to work your way all the way through the end. Okay? So this particular lesson is very difficult for me to approach, especially the first time that I heard this stuff. I'm kind of a big advocate of the opposite. I read a book a couple years, not years, but a couple weeks ago. It was called Grit, and it's all about perseverance, right? And the advantages of somebody that has the ability to persevere through something, the success story that usually ends up on the other side of that, right? We're going to look at the economic, sociological approach to this concept of quitting today and think about the reverse. What are the advantages of walking away from something, right? Because there are some advantages according to this particular research, okay? So, again, here are some of the sayings. Tough it out, never give up, a quitter never wins, a winner never quits. We need to contemplate that question today. Are we sure that that's completely the truth, right? Is there any truth that would contradict that idea? Okay, so these are the two key terms that if you get nothing else today, you need to make sure that you understand these two things. Okay, so these are more economic terms, but they do apply to social concepts with behavior as well, and it does have an effect on our culture as a whole. Okay. But they're called sunk costs and opportunity costs. Okay, sunk costs. It's all about the past. What has led up to this particular decision? Whether you stay with it, have grit, perseverance, or whether you walk away from it and you quit. Okay, everything in the past that has led up to that particular moment. And you may want to write this out to the side. Sunk costs keep us from quitting. Sunk costs keep us from quitting. And then opportunity costs, a lot of times we get lost in the sunk costs. That's the only thing that we can see, right? Opportunity costs, we need to do a better job of thinking this particular way, and this will help us to be able to walk away from something that we shouldn't be doing anymore, right? That we should be quitting. Sound good? All right, so I want you to do some self-reflection real quick. I want you to think about, I'll give you an opportunity to come up with some examples before I share with you some examples. What are some things that you're involved with that you're reluctant to quit because of everything that you put into in the past? I'll give you one example before you come up with something on your own. I had a student, Bishop Glick was having a conversation with him, ironically, yesterday afternoon, and the student said that she was playing softball, and then she said, I hate it. I don't like it. Miss Glick was like, why do you keep on playing then, if you don't like it? And she was like, well, I played travel softball ever since I was, 6, right? And so from her perspective, all those years of playing travel softball, she can't walk away from it now, right? She's on so many different teams. That keeps her from quitting that way. Sound good? Go ahead and talk with your partner, person in front, person behind you. See if you come up with examples, activities that you're involved in that you're not going to quit because of all the things that you've put into it up to this particular moment. Sound good? All right, Isaiah, what you got?
I said lacrosse.
Lacrosse, okay. You can't quit lacrosse because of?
I said it was like a sunk cost because I've been playing for a long time.
You've been playing for a long time, okay. You spent all that time practicing, and you don't want that to be all for nothing, right? You want to get something out of it, right? The other thing is, how much money have you spent on lacrosse? Whether it would be the teams that you play on, whether it be traveling back and forth, right? Whether it be the sports equipment, right, that you're purchasing. There's money involved in that particular case, right? And so we're always thinking about that. So that's a good example. What else? Lakin.
I said track.
Track, okay? So that's kind of similar to what we got here, right? All the effort that you put into the past. Let's see if we can get something besides sports. I thought you guys said something about Trinity. What did you say? A job, right? Sometimes we don't quit a job, right, because of all the time that we've put into it in the past, right? And then the other thing is we fear what will happen if we walk away from it, right? We fear that nothing else is going to be out there, so we just stay with where we're at because, we don't know. That way we're afraid. Anything else? Yes.
And why would people job hop?
Why do they quit jobs so often, statistically speaking, as a culture? I think a lot of it is because of extrinsic rewards. We're not intrinsic. That's, separate and apart from what we're talking about today. We are conditioned and socialized to be extrinsically motivated people when it comes to work, and so it's all about the money, right? And we choose occupations that are all about the money. And these career fields are not intrinsically rewarding, right? We don't enjoy them in and of themselves, and because we don't have that intrinsic component, the longevity is not there, right? We're always looking for something else then as a result of that. We got one more aspect of sunk costs where we don't quit something. What about a relationship? All right? You don't quit that relationship with somebody because I've spent so much. I've wasted 2 months, 2 weeks, right? I've spent all that time with them. I'm stuck. I guess I'm gonna be with them forever now, right? I bought him a birthday present. I'm in. I've dug in deep. Okay, I can't get that money back now. Right? So that's the sunk costs that keep us in those relationships longer than we should be. Okay? All right, so personal reflection. I've quit quite a few things. I was in gymnastics when I was younger, up until I got into 6th grade. So about really 6 to 8 years, 8 years or so. Up to that particular point, I started pretty young. But I quit because it gave me the opportunity to play other sports, all right? So that's why I walked away from it. I quit band, again. I did that until I was a sophomore in high school, and then I quit that because it gave me an opportunity to play more sports. I've quit coaching scenarios. We'll come back to that here in a second. I quit a job, I was a car salesman for 2 weeks. didn't have much sunk cost in that particular one. I got out of there pretty fast. I quit a teaching job one time. I was a teacher in north of Nashville, Tennessee, a small community called White House, and I was working at a private school there, and I quit that job because I wanted to get married. And so that made that decision for me. So we moved back here, and I couldn't work down there and live up here at the same time. So I quit that one. One year, I quit drinking Mountain Dew for the entirety of the year. It's probably the worst year that I've ever experienced. Now, I don't drink a lot of carbonated beverages today, but I won't necessarily say that I won't drink it at all, right? That was a tough year. Coaching, I've quit that before. Like I used to do a couple years ago, a summer Legion baseball team, and it was tough for me. I really enjoy that stuff, but I quit because I like to have time to spend with the boys at home, right? It got to the point where every afternoon I was taking off at a ball game, and I wasn't going to get home till 9, 10 o'clock that night, right? And Preston's asking, where are you going, right? Every day. And so it got to the point where I realized that I needed to be at home rather than be in other places there, okay? All right, more than just myself. There's this guy named Robert Wright. I'm going to give you a couple of other examples of the advantages of quitting here for a moment to get us started. Robert Wright, this goes back to the 1990s. He was the U.S. Secretary of Labor under President Clinton, and he was really successful. One of the best guys at his job, not only in that particular window of time, but for really, some people have considered him the best person at his job for the entirety of the 20th century. Right, so really successful. He came up with the Family and Medical Leave Act. He was a big proponent of pushing that through. Raised the minimum wage. Unemployment underneath his leadership fell below 5%. According to Time magazine, he was identified as one of the 5 best cabinet members of the 20th century. Okay. The thing is, he quit his job. He had 2 things that he really liked. He liked his job, liked what he did, but he also liked his family. Right? He had some boys that were in high school at this particular time. And he realized, if I continue doing what I'm doing at my job, then there's a sacrifice over here. I can't spend the time with my boys like I want to. Right? And so he decided something's got to give. And he quit his job. He walked away, right, from one of the most advantageous positions, right, politically, very powerful, very influential, and he walked away from it. Okay? So he was thinking about what allowed him to quit. The opportunity costs, right? He was thinking about the future, right? Missing time with his boys, okay? Rather than, he wasn't thinking about the sunk costs, all the time and effort that he had putting into that particular spot, right? Getting to his particular position. He forgot about the sunk cost, and he moved on to the opportunity cost, okay? So he's a good one. A good example to think about the advantages of quitting. This guy is not, right? Justin Humphreys is a guy that struggles with this idea of quitting, okay? And he's a minor league baseball player. At one time, he's considered to be one of the best baseball prospects, drafted at a young age. He struggled to make it to the big leagues, and then he eventually quit by the age of 27, okay? You may think, well, 27 is still fairly young, right? That's all right. But really what he did was he took a 10-year gap, and he kind of flushed it, right? Missed opportunity. So there's some statistics that say that after that about 10-year window for baseball players that don't make it to the major leagues, whenever they get out in the late 20s, in comparison to somebody that never played minor league baseball, they're making 40% less than that person that didn't play Major League Baseball on average. Sound good? 40% less. The average income for a minor league baseball player is like between $20,000 and $24,000. $20,000 and $24,000, not very much at all. Okay, it may have improved a little bit over the past few years since this research has came out, but it's really low pay. Okay, a very small percentage of those people that have drafted actually make it to the big leagues. The problem is, a lot of them are very reluctant to, walk away from it, right? They hang on longer than what they should, okay? Because they're, a lot of times, they're thinking about the sunk cost, and they're not thinking about the opportunity cost, okay? Ironically, Justin Humphreys, after he quit, he started going back to community college, and he started studying economics, and then he went to Columbia University, and at Columbia, he ran into this guy. Anybody remember this guy? The rogue sociologist, the gang leader for a day. He was teaching one of the classes there at Columbia, and he was talking about the economics of quitting one particular day, okay? Sudhir Venkatesh. And so with the instruction and the ideas from Venkatesh, Justin Humphreys has now started to come up with an organization that actually helps minor league baseball players quit. It helps them quit, gives them the realization of the advantages of walking away from baseball and not hanging on for too long, okay? So I said 40%, talked about the salary. Most of these players that end up in minor league baseball, in order for them to support themselves, they have to come from upper middle class families, right? Because they got a safety net behind them. Their parents can help them fund their career, their extension of their career that way. Because without their parents, their upper middle class type of families, then they would struggle. They won't be able to continue their efforts there. Okay. Let's scoot back or scoot on. All right. Stephen Levitt, you want to write his name down. He's an economist that works at the University of Chicago. He's an author of Freakonomics. This is really where the podcast comes from. As he teaches his classes, these are grad classes at the University of Chicago, he specifically tells his students that are trying to get these, graduate degrees. Some of them, I imagine, are working on like doctorates and stuff. They're in that process. They've spent a lot of years in their education up to that particular point. He tells them on a regular basis in their classes, you need to quit. You need to quit this degree program. You need to walk out of here right now, and you need to go do something else, okay? Why would he do something like that? He does it because he knows the advantages of the positive side of quitting, all right? He's thinking all about opportunity costs. He's not thinking about sunk costs at all, okay? He even tells his kids to quit. Tells them to quit soccer and quit baseball. And this is very difficult for me because as a parent, I have a tough time when Preston walks away from one of our basketball games and we're not even finished yet. Get back here, we're going to finish this game right now, right? I want that perseverance characteristic and quality for him to acquire that. I want him to have some of that grit that I read about in that book a couple weeks ago, right? So it's really difficult for me to jump on board with Levitt's ideas, but he's thinking all about opportunity costs. He's not thinking about the sunk cost at all, okay? He says we gain so much from quitting, however, many of us never realize it because we never quit. There should be no shame in quitting. We should fail quickly and quit what you're not good at, okay? Now this is key. We need to we need to quit what we're not good at. And some of us, we have a difficult time differentiating what we are good at and what we are not good at. Sound good? Some of us, we talk about this in psychology, the difference between ideal self and real self. We have a big separation between those two things, okay? So we need to be honest with ourselves when it comes to this process of quitting, okay? Another example in which you have authoritative figures or administrations using this idea of quitting to improve their particular program. Sound good? So we'll use the example of the Navy SEALs. They have this concept of called Hell Week when they got these Marines are trying to become Navy SEAls. During this week, these SEALs only sleep between 2 to 5 hours over the course of the entirety of the week. Right? I can barely go the next day with only having 5 hours of sleep, so let alone the entirety of the week. So they are taxed mentally, physically as well. Their tasks that they're involved in over the week are designed to push them to their physical, emotional, mental limits. I think some of them are described as, they'll go out into, the weather's kind of like this, maybe even colder, 30 degrees, 35 degrees, and they'll get them into the the water, and they'll have to do some type of activity out there. Then they'll get them out and they'll run on the beach, and then they'll run them back out in the water again. And then through this whole process, they'll have somebody over the loudspeaker saying, hey, why don't you give up? Why don't you quit? We got some hot coffee right here waiting, donuts waiting for you. All you have to do is just quit, right? Why would they do something like that over the course of that week? Simon?
As the week goes on, the sunk cost gets bigger and bigger.
Exactly. If they make it through the week, right? I mean, first off, you can weed out the weak ones, right? But if you, as an individual, you make it through and you get all the way to the end, your level of commitment just goes way up, right? Because of this process. So you can think about how this applies to like fraternities or sororities. You have that week at the beginning of the semester that you got to do all those crazy things, right? And after you get done and you make it to the end, how committed are you to that sorority, that fraternity? You're committed, right? You're not walking away from it. Look what you had to do to get there, okay? So it's kind of related to cognitive dissonance a little bit as well, okay? Going back to Levitt, he says there's two types of quitters. He says there's the quitter that quits and then they make excuses. We don't want to be that type of quitter, okay? We don't want to be that one. And then there's the quitter who's honest with themselves, and they're the ones that we want to be. We're honest, we realize our ability, and then we walk away with it and from it, and then we focus on the next thing. Sound good? We look for the next opportunity to succeed in a different area. We don't waste our time in those things that we are not good at. Sound good? We don't think about those sunk costs. We think about the opportunity cost. I think we're about out of time. I've got a few more thoughts. Let me see what else is here. Yeah. Maybe I'll put them into our... Got quite a bit more there. Maybe I'll put them into our bell work tomorrow. Sound good? All right. I appreciate your attention this morning. Just think about the sunk cost, opportunity cost later today, and we'll reflect upon them a little bit more at the beginning of class tomorrow. All right? You guys have a good one.